Today we're going to start off with Shadi Toloui-Wallace singing the Unity Prayer by Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i Faith.
Oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal to them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy love. Help them, oh God, oh help them, oh God, in their endeavor, and grant them strength to serve thee, oh God, oh my God. To themselves, but guide their steps by the light of thy knowledge, and cheer their hearts by thy love. Oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal to them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, oh God, oh help them, oh God, in their endeavor, and grant them strength to
Thank you so much, Shadi. That was beautiful. So today we're so excited to have a conversation about the Baha'i Faith with Justin Baldoni. Justin is an actor, director, producer, entrepreneur, and changemaker whose efforts are focused on creating impactful media and entertainment. Baldoni is the co-founder of Wayfarer Studios, an independent financial and production engine pioneering purpose-driven, multi-platform film and television productions that elevate and speak to the human spirit. He's also the founder of Wayfarer Foundation, a nonprofit which seeks to change the way communities see and respond to unhoused populations. In 2020, Baldoni directed and produced Wayfarer Studio's first feature film project, Clouds, which is based on the book Fly a Little Higher by Laura Sobiech about her son, Zach. Baldoni made his feature film directorial debut in March 2019 with 5 Feet Apart for CBS Films and Lionsgate, starring Cole Sprouse and Haley Lou Richardson as cystic fibrosis patients who fall in love but aren't allowed physical contact due to their medical condition. Baldoni first rose to worldwide fame through his role as Rafael on the CW's award-winning phenomenon, Jane the Virgin. He currently lives in Ojai, California, with his wife, 2 children, and their dog, Happy. So we're going to kind of have an interactive conversation today, and we're going to take all your questions from the chat, either on Zoom or if you're watching on YouTube, you can put it there. But to sort of start us off, I'll ask you this, Justin. So a lot of people know you from your acting, directing, and producing roles. And at the same time, people, you've been very open with people about wanting your life and your work to serve a higher purpose. And you tend to share with people the role that your faith as a Baha'i plays in your life. So I guess just to start off, would you consider yourself a religious person? And what does that term mean to you?
Oh, man. First of all, hi, everybody. So what I love about this is I don't normally get to do Zooms where I can see people. Normally there's like everyone's hidden, but I get to see all your faces and it's so sweet. There's so many of you. I'm nervous. I'm swiping through at the moment. Oh my God. How blessed are we to be together this morning? Okay. First of all, I want to start with this. I had a rough night last night. And I actually am really happy that I'm here talking about this because it's so important, I think, for those of you who are younger, maybe those of you who are new to the Baha'i Faith, to recognize that even when you go to talk or when you go to listen to speakers or Baha'i speakers or Christian speakers or whatever, we're human beings and we don't have all the answers and we struggle and we suffer just like everybody else. So you guys are filling me up this morning because my heart was hurting a little bit when I woke up and when I went to bed last night. So it's really sweet to be here with you. In terms of religious or spiritual, I do consider myself a religious person. The challenge is for me, as I think it is for a lot of people, is that in 2021, being religious is looked down on. It's like we've created this world because religion has screwed up so many things, and we've hurt so many people in the name of religion. We've oppressed entire groups of people. We've killed millions and millions in the name of God. Man has done all of these things in the name of religion. And so it makes perfect sense why the world is like, no, that's not okay. So if you're religious, in some ways, it's almost as if you are one of those people. However, I think religion is really important. I like to think of God. First of all, let me just start with, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have no idea what the Baha'i Faith is here. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. So let me just give you like a quick bird's eye, like just some stream of consciousness thoughts. And please keep in mind that nothing I say today is an official stance from the Baha'i view. All right. I am nothing. I'm just a guy that got lucky to fall into some sort of D-list celebrity, and you're all here wanting to hear what I have to say about a topic. but there is nothing official coming from me. So we believe, essentially, the Baha'is believe that God is an unknowable essence, right? It's not a dude in the sky with a beard, watching everything that we do while we sleep, judging us, writing in a tally like, you did good today, you did bad today, and then at the end of our lives deciding whether or not we're gonna, rot or burn in hell for all of eternity, or enter a paradise. Essentially, Baha'is believe that God is an unknowable essence. Basically, we have no freaking clue what or who or how God is or works. So much so that we're told that the prophets of God themselves, all of the religious teachers, the Jesuses and the Muhammads, even Baha'u'llah, who's the prophet founder of the Bahá'í Faith, have no comprehension of the infiniteness and vastness of God. So that should do two things. One, it should make you feel better that there's not some guy in the sky. So that it's kind of a scientific, realistic idea of, okay, that's improbable. But two, it should also make your mind really, really hurt, because it doesn't give you any answers. It's kind of the cruel joke of faith, right? Like you don't have anything concrete, so you have to actually have faith. So how can we as people, how can we as human beings that have finite brains, right, that have limited understandings of the universe, that govern our existence from the sun, right? There's a morning and an evening. There's time that goes by. We have clocks. Everything around us in this material world is governed by time. And yet we're supposed to somehow comprehend or understand that something created us that is beyond time, that is bigger than time, that is bigger than the universe, and that we are our bodies, but we're not our bodies, and that one day we're going to die. We're born and we're going to die. We see people die every single day. We have no idea where they go. They just disappear. Their bodies are just gone. Their bodies are there, but their spirits are just gone. And yet we're supposed to believe that that's not the end, that there's something else there. And that this universe, this big, massive universe that we're barely understanding, we're like at the tip of it. We can't comprehend it, was created by something, the same thing that created us, that we're spinning on a gigantic rock that's orbiting this massive ball of plasma that is somehow all working in unison together. And there are billions and trillions of other rocks and stars and suns that are way bigger than ours. And there's even black holes in the universe that have the ability to suck matter into them. All of these things, right? Your mind just goes, what the hell? And yet at the same time, we were created by something. Somehow all of this was created by something. It wasn't just an accident, or was it? And that's the basic idea of where the Bahá'í Faith comes in that we are told that this was all on purpose, and that there is a plan, and specifically our planet and our lives and human beings. The purpose of our lives are to know and understand a God that we will never know and understand. So how do we do that? We do that through teachings. We do that through religions. We do that through all of the teachers that came before and who brought this message. And the idea of religion also, and I know I'm getting kind of deep and out there, is that all of the religions, we believe, have been sent by God, this unknowable essence from the beginning of time, and have all said the same thing. If you were to put all of the religious teachers in a room together, if you were to go back in time and have some time travel device and find a way to bring them all back, they would all agree with each other. But they've come at different times and different places based on where we are, where humanity is, and how we're able to understand the message. I like to think of it as kindergarten through college. My children are in kindergarten. So they're learning very, very basic things. So my daughter is learning how to spell. She's learning her alphabet and her numbers. She's learning how to do math. But everything, she's not wrong in what she's learning. Everything that I know as an adult comes from what she's learning as a child. So she's not wrong. She's just learning 1 + 1. Well, I can do I can do multiplication sometimes, depending on the day. Not this morning. Please don't ask me to do multiplication. I can spell sometimes. I can read, but I couldn't have done it if it weren't for that first grade class, that kindergarten class that taught me the very basics. And that's what religion is. So the Baha'is believe in this thing called progressive revelation, which basically means that all of the religions in the history of the world, all of these things that we look at that have caused so much pain, that have done so much harm in the name of God, are fundamentally good and all agree. And they've come at different times in different places based on where we are, where we've been as children in our development. And unfortunately, what happens is when we forget the message, right? When we decide that we want to like drop out of school, or when we misinterpret the message and we use what we learn from these religious teachers from God to hurt other people, to oppress other people, to kill other people. When it becomes about our egos, then God sends a new one. And it roughly equates to every 1,000 or so years. And the Baha'i Faith is just the most recent of these world religions. It's kind of like college. We're mature, right? And if we know anything about college, if you're young enough to be in college, or if you just graduated from college, it's pretty exciting. There's freedom there, right? Like, our parents trust us enough. We leave the house, we go, we have our own lives, we stay in dorms, we go to enter fraternities or sororities. We're kind of like responsible for ourselves. We have to show up to class on our own. There's no one there to wake us up and get us there. There's a little bit of a responsibility because we're treated like adults. And in many ways, that's what the Baha'i Faith is for humanity. God sent another prophet who, again, like all of the other prophets, is essentially preaching the same thing. But this time, Baha'u'llah says, we are mature. We are ready. And the purpose of this religion is to see all of mankind as one human family. We are the fruits of one tree and the leaves of one branch. Don't see the differences. See the parts of us that are more similar. And with that responsibility of being in college comes a lot of pain and discomfort, because you make a lot of mistakes when you're in college, when you're walking on your own for the first time, or trying to get to class for the first time, or you're suddenly tested with all these things that these things in adulthood that you're going to have to learn. And the Baha'i Faith is in a very similar position, because we're living in a time where we believe in many ways that we need to unite the world, but yet the only way to do that is to bring everybody together and help us realize our oneness. But that happens through spirit. That happens also through religion, but we're living in a time when religion isn't cool, right? Religion isn't okay. It isn't cool right now. So it creates a challenge. We're in this day of maturity. So there are no pastors, there are no priests, there are no imams in the Baha'i Faith. They're just dummies. They're dummies like me that are, giving lectures and talks. And then there's super wise, incredible people, but nobody has the right to tell you exactly what the Baha'i Faith perspective on anything is, because you're in college now, because humanity is in college, and we all have this ability to open these books, to open the writings of Baha'u'llah and interpret the words for ourselves. What a blessing, but also what a challenge, because it requires us to have discipline in order to do that. It requires us to be free thinkers. And one of my favorite tenets of the Baha'i Faith is the independent investigation of truth, meaning that every human being on this planet has the ability to learn and understand truth for themselves, and therefore should ask questions, should go deep, should question and challenge. Similar to college, right? What did we do when we went to university? What did we do to college? We kind of challenged, we kind of pushed back against the things that we were taught our whole lives. We rebelled a little bit. We're like, I don't know if that's for me. And oftentimes, we might stray or go left of center, but we come back when we become real adults. We got to come back and be like, oh, my parents were right. Like, this wasn't all that bad. Oh, yeah, I don't feel good after like 3 nights in a row of binge drinking. Maybe I'm just going to not do that for right now. We test the limits as human beings. And we're told in the Baha'i Faith that we have to investigate truth for ourselves. So what does that mean? It means not just becoming something because our parents are. It means not just blindly following leaders or politicians or religious institutions. It means digging in and asking those questions and then praying and meditating for the answers. So that's a long ass way to say yes, I think I'm religious. I consider myself spiritual, because one of the things I love about the faith is that we talk deeply in the Baha'i Faith. We're told to identify with that mystic feeling, the mystic feeling of faith. So there's a mystical aspect to faith that gives me the chills when I think about or talk about, because it's not just like, you know, again, half my family is Jewish and half my family is Catholic. So I get it and I understand religion, but it's not just like say your Hail Marys. It's not just like go do this 5 times and you're absolved of your sins. It's far deeper than that. There's a responsibility. There's a trust that God has given us, that God has given human beings right now, to say, like, I trust you. And it's a trust that I can tell you as a parent, I'm terrified to give my children. Because with that trust is also going to innately come disappointment. Because my children are going to test the limits of life and boundaries and want to explore and maybe do things that I don't want them to do. But I will always love them and they'll always be able to come back to me. So just because humanity has screwed up religion, just because mankind we've been dummies and we've had our egos lead the way, and we've taken this idea of religion, you know, look, the true miracle of Jesus and Muhammad and all of our religious teachers is the fact that billions of people follow them today. That's the true miracle. And there's a power in the word of God. There's a power in these words that Jesus brought. There's a power in the way he unified his people and brought people together. And that power, when it leaves Jesus and goes into to the disciples, or when it leaves Jesus and goes into the pulpit or into a church, which, by the way, Jesus never talked about founding, but we can talk about that later. But when it transfers from the word of God through Jesus into another person, there's a power there. And that power can really mess with your mind, because all of us human beings from the beginning of time have been brought into life with a question. And that question is, why am I here? And a longing and a desire to find God. In the same way that trees are planted and their entire life they are growing up and they want to find the sun, human beings have that same longing. We want to grow and find an answer. We want to find out why we're here, where we're going to go when we die. We want to find God. Even if we don't know we want to find God, we're searching for God everywhere in life. We do it every single day. And that power has the ability to change people's hearts and minds. But if we're not careful, that medicine can also become the poison. And that power can be used to abuse and to oppress and to kill. And that's what's happened over the course of thousands of years. And that's why we're here now, living in a day and age when people have a hard time saying they're religious. But as Baha'is, no, yeah, I am religious. So my God, that was a long answer to your question.
No, thank you. Now we have several questions about, like, did you grow up in a Baha'i family or did you find it on your own, and what attracted you to the Baha'i faith?
Yeah, so I grew up, my mom was Jewish. And my mom's rad. My mom was the Jewish kid that asked her mom about Jesus because all of her friends were Christian. And I will forever be grateful to my mom for this. And she gave me my curious, challenging mind and heart. And, you know, where she grew up in the Midwest, everybody was celebrating Christmas, and she was one of the few Jews. And she would ask herself, Mom, you know, why are they celebrating Christmas? Or who was Jesus? And they would say, he was a good man. He was a very good man. And that wasn't a good answer from my mom. She's like, if he was just a good man, why are these people like worshiping him? And, you know, there's something more here. And eventually she just had a curious heart. She was a seeker of truth. And I think she eventually became a Christian and then did a similar thing. She's like, who are those people worshiping? Why are they devoting their lives to this? And she was just always wondering and questioning why and who people were. And so often when you come from religious backgrounds and other people have a different perspective or religion, you can kind of write off or belittle whatever that is. Oh, he was just this, or oh, that's just that, or those people are very sweet, but blah, 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 blah. And that was never enough for her. So she actually found the Baha'i faith when she was in her 20s. And then she met my dad when they were in their 30s, and my dad was a Catholic. My dad was a Catholic, like, maybe go to church on Sunday, maybe. My grandma, the family is super Catholic. My Nana Grace walked around with a rosary and would pray all day long. And Catholic, I know Catholics who are some of the most spiritual people I've ever met. And my grandma was like that, and I have a few family members like that. But my dad wasn't like that. My dad was a partier and a drinker, and he had a lot of fun. And then he met my mom, and my mom gave him a couple books. And I think he was just really in love with my mom, and he decided that he would choose. He wanted to investigate the Baha'i faith, and he read a book that really changed his life. And he decided to become a Baha'i. I was raised in a Baha'i family. However, I was raised celebrating Christmas and Hanukkah. So neither one of them wanted to abandon their traditions. And so I kind of grew up celebrating Christmas and Hanukkah and Baha'i holidays, and also being kind of confused about what I even believed, because I grew up in a very born-again Christian place in Oregon, where I was told on a daily basis that I wasn't enough and I was going to burn in hell. Which is not what all Christians believe, but what this group of Christians believes. And when I was 15, I decided for myself that I was going to become a Baha'i. So you can't really become a Baha'i until you're 15. That's the day of maturity of the Baha'i faith. It's kind of like, if you're Jewish, it's like your bar mitzvah, except we don't have anything nearly as cool in the Baha'i faith because there's no traditions. So my parents, when I was 15, I said, yeah, I want to be a Baha'i. And they gave me a prayer book that was signed by the people of the community in the town that I was in. And that was it. There was no big celebration. Since then, I've learned that there are communities and pockets of people in the Baha'i faith that have these really badass, really sweet, touching kind of coming of age ceremonies for their children that, decide they want to become Baha'is. And that's also one of the most beautiful things about our faith, is that it looks different everywhere you go. And yet it's also the same. It's the same writings, it's the same teachings, but culturally and in different communities around the world, the practices are so interesting and so different and so unique. But yet we're all worshiping and praying to the same thing and praying for the same things. Then in my teens and 20s, I went to college, like I talked about earlier. I had my own versions of rebelling and falling in love and being challenged by faith in general and questioning everything, and kind of distanced myself in my early 20s a little bit from the faith, and then found my way back thanks to hardship and heartbreak, which is very interesting. It's kind of one of the things that always brings us back, right? Kind of think of it like if I go in the gym and I'm been working out and I'm doing, I'm building a lot of muscle, and then I just decide to put an extra 30 pounds on the bench press because I think I can do it. And I'm like, no, I don't need a spotter. I can do it myself. And then I go pull it off the bar and it just collapses on my chest. It's a wake-up call to recognize that you're not the shit. You don't have all the answers. And that's in some ways what my experience in my early 20s did for me, is it humbled me. And that's one of the blessings, I think, of being human, is we get humbled. One of my best friends, former business partners, is Muslim. And he taught me early on that one of the Arabic words for human means insan, which is the translation is they who forget. And I just found that so powerful, this idea that the way that God describes human beings is that we forget. We're insane. We forget everything. We forget joy. We forget love. We forget pain. We're like goldfish, just, going through life and having these experiences and then forgetting. But that's also what makes life so amazing, because that means life is about the remembering. And in the Baha'i Faith, we're taught to say these obligatory prayers, these prayers that we're asked to say every single day. And the one that we're asked to say every day, the most important part of the prayer is to remember God. Like literally we're being asked to remember God during the day, because we've had this world, it's designed this world around us that helps us forget. So, and we will forget, and I forgot, and yet we're presented with opportunities every single day to remember. And that's what I find so amazing about faith in general, is that as human beings, we have the opportunity through love, through service, through connection to God, to remember why we're here, to remember that there's something greater than ourselves, that somebody or something created us, and that we're all one. So there you go.
Thank you. So there are a lot of good questions. I'm just going to try to cover some of the most common ones. So, Justin, you talked about how there's no strict rules in the Baha'i Faith and we're all learning like in college. But how do you have unity in the Baha'i Faith? What things unite you as people of the same faith?
Did I say there are no strict rules? Sorry, I'm trying to make my phone turn off because I keep getting these messages. I mean, there's rules. I want to be mindful. There's definitely strict rules in the Baha'i Faith, but Baha'u'llah talks about laws, right? And but he doesn't talk about them as like, hey, these are laws, and if you break them, you're gonna be punished. He talks about laws in this way that's so beautiful. He calls it the choice wine, right? And if you think about back in the 1800s when Baha'u'llah came, like wine, like choice wine was something that you would go from town to town to try to find. You would bring it home and you'd celebrate with this choice wine that and you'd have people over and you would drink it. Obviously not in the Baha'i Faith because we don't drink, but in general, like culturally, the choice wine. And what it means is, yeah, there's rules and there's laws, but it's like there's also stoplights and stop signs, and and there are things that exist in the world that maybe are not really something that, they're not fun. Like rules are never fun, but there's also purpose for them and reason for them. It's the way I think about my children. Like I have rules for my kids. They hate the rules. They don't want to go to sleep at a certain time. They don't want to brush their teeth. They don't want to eat their dinner. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do this. And it's so funny being a parent now because I see so much of myself and humanity in my children. And I think, it's so weird to even be able, this is not the right thing to say, and I shouldn't be saying this, but I have so much compassion for whoever this thing is that created us. And how can I have compassion for the creator of compassion? But yet I do. I feel like this deep pain sometimes and sadness, wondering how God must feel, if he or she or it feels in general, about the fact that it created all of us, and yet we're just constantly challenging everything and saying, no, we know better. Because that's what our kids do. And yet at the same time, all the rules that I give my children are not because I just want to be mean. They're because I want them to grow and develop and flourish and become amazing human beings. And I want them to not to not starve, and I want them to eat, and I want them to eat good food so that their bodies grow. And I want them to not jump off of second store balconies because I want them to live and have a chance at life. And I want them to not touch the fire on the stove because I don't want them to burn themselves because it's going to hurt them. But after a certain point in time, I can only ask them to, not do things for so long, and then it's their choice and it's their chance, their opportunity to figure this out for themselves. And I feel like that's something that's how I look at life. And that's how I look at God sometimes. How he's just kind of like, oh, these kids, oh, my sweet children, I love them so much, but they're such a mess. And in terms of how do we have unity? That was the question. How do we have unity? How do we?
Yeah. Like, how do we have the same, what connects us as Baha'is?
As Baha'is, or do you mean like in the Baha'i faith, or do you mean like in the world as Baha'is?
I think the question was like, what is the central unity point of the Baha'i faith?
Sure.
But you can answer in terms of the
Yeah. I think the answer to that question would simply be that, look, just go to science. We are 99.9999999% similar to the other 7 billion people on the planet. And yet we divide ourselves. We organize ourselves into factions and cultures, and we build these invisible things called borders. And then we judge people based on them and deem some people worthy and some people not. We separate ourselves by the pigmentation of our skin. The pigmentation of our skin, which is directly correlated to where genetically we were born and developed thousands of years ago, long before there was ever any of this. And then religion, of course, which is the very thing that God came to unite us, we use as means to kill each other and to divide ourselves. And so you look at the fact that we are not just more alike than different, we are alike. So when Baha'u'llah says we are drops of an ocean, if you look at water in an ocean, it's probably 99.9999999% similar to the other drops in the ocean. Of course, there's going to be uniqueness in every single drop, but it's the same. Every drop of water is essentially genetically identical to another, and it forms one massive ocean. And that's the same. That's how we are. We are cells in a human body. Like we are literally one human body, and we are cells in a human body, and yet we are acting like we are not, like we are in different bodies. And what happens when we do that? Cancer. So of course we see cancer spreading and growing and developing, not just in our bodies, but in the world. These are spiritual problems, right? So I think it comes back to looking at our similarities, looking at the fact that none of us know where we're going when we die. No one has a clue. Some people have had near-death experiences, sure, but none of us really know where we're going. It's where faith comes in. So we all know that we're born. We all know that we're going to die. We know that we're 99.999% similar to each other. We know that we have all of these, we have billions of people that believe in these mystic spiritual things that these religious teachers have come from time, from the beginning of time to teach and bring us together. We believe in love and service and kindness and all of these virtues, and yet we can't get along. And in the Baha'i faith, we're asked to believe and think of something bigger than ourselves, to place ourselves in a lowly, humble position, and to prefer for another what we would prefer for ourselves, to see the good qualities. Abdul Baha says if a man has 10 good qualities and 1 bad, to look at the 10 and forget the 1. If a man has 1 good quality and 10 bad, to look at the 1 and forget the 10. To not speak about each other disparagingly, to not fault find or gossip or backbite, because worse than murder is the talking down and the backbiting, the gossiping of another human being on the planet, because that thing does more harm than anything else. You can't recover from that. Not only is it terrible for the person that you're talking to, because just hearing that thing about that person weighs heavily on the heart of the individual. It's spiritually terrible for the person you're talking about, and even worse, it's terrible for you. Baha'u'llah says that backbiting quencheth the light of the heart. It quencheth, it sucks up the light of the heart and extinguisheth the life of the soul. And that's the other thing, is that we believe we have a soul, that we are more than our bodies, right? That we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And if you believe that, then it challenges you to look at the world differently. Because if you believe that you have a soul, and this soul is kind of the animating force of your life, and again, the soul is a whole nother thing. The soul blows my mind, and it should blow all of your minds. And if you're a scientist, it should blow your mind, and it should make you question everything, because just the idea of a soul, this thing that animates us, yet it is not us, right? Is kind of just like your mind just starts to hurt when you think about it. But that soul being the thing that all of us have as people, meaning that we are not our bodies, despite how we look. And that's this soul, this concept of the soul in the Baha'i faith is that it's created at essentially at conception, and it never ends. It has a beginning, but it has no end, which means that we are constantly progressing towards God, which means that this isn't the end. If you think about all those things and you take all of those things into account, and there's a whole lot more and we don't have time for them, it's very hard to not see that we are all one, and we are all trying to figure this out, and we should have compassion and empathy for each other, right? And we are all these beings of energy that are just, implanted in these physical bodies, and the world around us is telling us that we should be in opposition to each other, but the spiritual world is telling us that we should be in unity. We know energy can't be created or destroyed. So where does it go? And we have to come together and recognize the oneness in all of that, and the oneness in the fact that none of us have any idea. We think we do, but we don't. And at the very least, we can all understand, we can all believe that none of us really know where we go when we die, or we don't really have the answers. And we can be united in our questioning and in our wondering what the hell happens to us. And maybe, this is really fun. It's like, what is the worst thing that could happen if we chose to live a life where we believed in God, right? It's like this age-old joke. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen if we spent our lives believing that there is a God, and wanting to organize our lives and principles in a way that would be pleasing to God, with love and kindness and compassion and empathy? What's the worst thing that can happen? We spend our lives being kind to other people and making them feel good. Great. And then what's the worst thing that can happen if we don't do that? And maybe there is an afterlife, and maybe we do need to go somewhere. What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, we spend our lives causing destruction, and then we realize that we were wrong. But if we were right, and we organized our lives in this principle with oneness and kindness and love and service, if we're right, and that there is a God, and that we are going somewhere when we die, then there's a reward there. Then it's like, great, that was awesome. So you really have nothing to lose. The best case scenario, if you believe in something greater than yourselves, and you spend your life trying to make other people happy and trying to acquire the virtues of God, is that not only do you live a life that makes you feel good and other people feel good, where you have more friends and you have more contentment and peace and happiness, and you spend your life in service, but when you realize this isn't the end, and if there is a soul and there is a God, and you get to wherever you're going next, you're like, oh, that was awesome. I'm so happy I did that. Because my life wasn't in vain. I could use all of these things. And the worst thing that can happen is that we end and we die and there's nothing there. But my God, if you choose to not believe in it and do the opposite, and you're wrong, well, that sucks. And there's nothing that we can do about that. I went off on a tangent after your question. Okay, next question.
Okay, so this question's interesting. So, some people say, like, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. What makes the Baha'i faith a religion rather than just like a spiritual belief?
What makes faith, one more time?
What makes the Baha'i faith a religion rather than just like a spiritual belief, or just saying, oh, I'm spiritual?
That's a good question. I'm not a scholar or probably the best person even to be answering this question, but it's a religion because it's organized. And it's a religion because Baha'u'llah, who was the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, who came in the 1800s and brought this message of progressive revelation, of oneness, of unity, letting us all know that we all agree, fundamentally all agree, and that we have to come together. He also brought with him a covenant, right? And in the beginning of time, Baha'is believe that God made a covenant with mankind, that God would never leave man without guidance, hence all the different religions. And the Baha'is believe that there have been 9 major religions, and all these are the Abrahamic religions. And there is a process by which you can measure the validity of what the religion is, and you can trace back the prophet's bloodline to Abraham, and it's all, so there's this whole other thing about it. However, Baha'u'llah was very clear that there is a plan, and it wasn't just like, hey, you know, be spiritual and like love each other and like, you know, peace out. It was like, no. There is a plan, and this is how the plan is going to unfold. And Baha'u'llah put in place protections. And his own son is an example, Abdul Baha, who many of the Baha'is look up to as the perfect example, to protect the faith and then to keep the faith going in this infallible way. So there are protections in place, and it's an organized religion. It's not just a way of life or a belief. It's an actual organized religion. And in every organized religion, there are systems of government and ways that the faith should be propagated and taught. And, you know, there's all kinds of things that make it an organized religion. But one of the things I love about the faith is even in its organization, Baha'u'llah has basically taken away all of the things that could possibly make it stray. Like there can't be an individual that just decides to start their own version of the Baha'i faith. Like there's no sect. Like you can't just have a sect of the Baha'i faith. Like you can't just decide, oh, you know what, I believe this, I'm going to go start my own church. He's taken away all of the ways in which a human being can profit from the teachings of the faith, where a human being can prop himself or herself up to then make the faith about them. Those things are gone. As an example, there is no church. He abolished clergy. There is no version, like I could just like, you know, I live up in Ojai. I couldn't just start the Ojai Church of Baha'is and then say, hey, come join me every Sunday. I'm going to talk about Baha'u'llah's teachings. Oh, and by the way, please tithe. Please give me money so that I can keep the lights on and do all of this. Because we know, while that might have a good intention, because churches need its community to keep the lights on, that also goes very, very far. And it's taken too far, and then it becomes about money and power and fame and all these types of things. And that's why you have these born-again Christian pastors traveling around the country in private jets, using their churches as tax-exempt statuses and making billions of dollars. And the Baha'i faith, you cannot even give money to the Baha'i faith unless you are a declared Baha'i with a Baha'i ID card. A lot of people ask me, like, why do we have Baha'i ID cards, or what, you know, why do they need to know I exist as a Baha'i? And one of the reasons are, like, one, it's to know where you are so that we can, so the Baha'i communities, you know, so you can find your local Baha'i communities, because there's a system. But the other is because one of the beautiful things about the Baha'i faith is being able to, if we choose to, give money to something that will keep a community going. But you can't even do that unless you're a Baha'i. They will send back your money. And if you take these superficial material aspects of humanity out of religion, it's very hard to corrupt, because that's what's happened time and time and time again. The purpose of our faith and the Baha'i faith is to be as low as possible, not to be as high as possible. Even the House of Justice, and this is a whole other conversation, but there's 9 individuals who are essentially anonymously selected based on their spiritual attributes and their merits to be the governing body of the Baha'i faith. And these 9 people, outside of their meeting together, have zero power. They have zero power. They have to give up their entire lives, first of all, and I've had a chance to spend time with some of these individuals. It is not something anybody wants to do. It is a sacrifice, and your life is spent in, you know, you have to move to Israel, you have to move your family, your life is spent in service. There's no glamour or glory. You are just in the trenches trying to solve the problems of the world with these 9 other people. And you make the same stipend that the gardeners make. There is no hierarchy. There is no like pope riding around in a bulletproof golden car. Nobody cares. I am just as important as anybody else, and you are just as important as anybody else, because we're all one. And the purpose of our faith, Baha'u'llah says, the highest position we can ever get to is the lowest, which is counterintuitive, right? So it's an organized religion built on the principles of oneness and unity, where the highest place you can get to is the lowest, and we must be of service to each other. But yet there are organizational principles that are required, in the same way that cities and towns need organizing principles, in the same way that nature governs itself with organizing principles. And one of the things that we're told in the Baha'i faith is that Baha'u'llah has told us that God has fashioned our existence off of the material world. So for every material law in the universe, there's a spiritual counterpart, and vice versa. So the organizing principle of our spirituality is modeled after the organizing principle of our world. There are, and that's a whole other thing, and that's for a different conversation, but we can go deep into that. But this is all in the writings. Again, I am only regurgitating things that I have read. These are not ideas. These are not Justin wisdom things. This is just, I have read things and I have heard things, and I am offering them back to you in the way that I speak, which is far from eloquent. And there are much better Baha'i speakers than myself. But I try to distill it down to like the dummy version, because that's what resonates with me. So please know, if you're feeling like you can comprehend a lot more than this, there are countless books that explain this in much better ways than I'm explaining it now.
Okay, so do you think you would be a different person if you weren't a Baha'i? And
Yes.
then also, yes, okay. And also, this is interesting. So you've talked a lot about healthy masculinity. How do you think the faith's teachings have influenced that, that work and that view?
Oh my God. First of all, I would be a terrible person if I wasn't a Baha'i. I'm just going to be real with you guys. I would be a terrible person if I wasn't a Baha'i. I want to read something to you guys. Hold on a second. So, look, I think all of us are predisposed to material challenges of the world. I'm somebody that grew up wanting to seek acceptance, specifically from other men. And one of the greatest blessings for me in my life was that my mom would always remind me that it was between me and God. Now, first of all, my mom comes from a Jewish background, so she's like the guilt trip master. I don't recommend this as a parenting style, or as I don't recommend any version of this. I don't recommend guilt or shame as a tool to keep people in check. But one of the things that my mom did, she taught me about God and Baha'u'llah, and then she said, it's between me and God. Oh, you want to drink? Oh, your friends are all drinking? Okay, it's between you and God, right? And it's just, it's just one of these like parenting tactics. But at the same time, because she had taught me about God and the purpose of existence in life at a very young age, that was always in the back of my mind. Now, while I didn't always make the right choice for the right reason, so there was a lot of times I made the right choice for the wrong reason. I made the right choice because I was afraid of the repercussions and the wrath of God or something, because it was between me and God, which is not the right reason. And so often in life, we are put in situations where sometimes we make the right choice, but we don't do it for the right reason. And we have to figure out how to do it for the right reason. And the right reason is always love. Always love. There is never going to be a reason, and I'm generalizing here because there probably might be a reason, but in general, there will probably never be a reason to not do something for any reason except love. It always comes back to love. The positive choice and the negative choice. And so as someone who grew up with a lot of insecurities, wanting to seek acceptance, I think I would have just gone with the flow and done what everybody else did, if not worse, if not more. And so if it wasn't for the faith reminding me that there is more to me than my body, there was more to me than the acceptance from these other boys or these girls, there's more to me than just the acquisition of material things in life, I think it would have set up my life in a way that was completely based on the material, and I would continue to be unhappy, because happiness doesn't come unless we are content with what we have, right? Happiness doesn't come without gratitude, and gratitude doesn't come, I believe, without awareness and love. And it's one of the beautiful things about the Baha'i Faith. In the Baha'i Faith, we're told that every day we should take ourselves into account. So every night before we go to bed, we should look at our actions from the day. We should think about all the things that we did right, all the good things that we did in a day, all the things that would maybe make God smile. And then we should pray for the strength to do those things again, to repeat those actions. And then we're also told to look at the things that maybe weren't so great, maybe the things that we did wrong that we're feeling some shame around, and ask for the strength to do better tomorrow. It's that simple. And that's one of the things that has helped me so much in my journey, because I fall short all the time. I fall short all of the time. And yet I know I have a chance when I wake up in the morning to do a little bit better than I did yesterday. And if I fall backwards today, then I'm going to wake up again and I'm going to try harder to do a little bit better tomorrow. And that's life. That's progression. That's again, it's the organizing principle of existence. It's the tree that's rooted in the soil, but yet we're trying to grow out away from the soil towards God, towards the sun, towards our creator. I'm the tree. The ground is the material world of existence, telling us that our Instagram needs to look a certain way, that our bodies need to look a certain way, that we have to make a certain amount of money, that we have to have a certain amount of success, that we have to have a certain amount of likes and comments, that we have to just, all of these things. The material world is that ground, and I am the tree. And over the course of my life, I need to be going away from the ground and towards the sun, towards God, growing up, if you will. And that's what the Baha'i Faith has helped me do, and is continuing to help me do, as I am far from there. I fail and I fall short every single day, and I get stuck in the ground. I get stuck in the soil. I get lost in there. And but yet at the end of the day, I have a chance to reconnect with God, to say my prayers, to meditate, to connect, and to grow up the next day. So yes. And then I want to share this thing, because you asked me, because I know we're out of time. Boy, am I a talker. So you asked me about my work with masculinity. By the way, if you haven't and you're interested in getting my book, it's called Man Enough. And I talk a lot about undefining what it means to be a man. It's also, there's a lot of Baha'is here. It's pretty radical. I share a lot of things that are personal, and maybe some strict Persian parents are not going to be happy that I'm sharing, but it's real, and I think it's important. So this at its core is I believe the Baha'i perspective on masculinity and the world, and why and how it's influenced me, and it's important. So Abdul Baha says this: the world in the past has been ruled by force, and man has dominated over women by reason of his more forceful and aggressive qualities, both of body and mind. But the balance is already shifting. Force is losing its dominance, and mental alertness, intuition, and the spiritual qualities of love and service, in which women is strong, are gaining ascendancy. Hence, the new age will be an age less masculine and more permeated with feminine ideals, or to speak more exactly, will be an age in which the masculine and feminine elements of civilization will be more evenly balanced. And that is at its core what the Baha'is believe, and why I'm doing so much work in the gender equality space, specifically with men. Because right now we don't have balance. And men are not taught to embrace their feminine qualities and attributes, and women are bullied and demonized for embracing their masculine. And we're doing it to each other. That's what a patriarchal society looks like. And I believe that the key to the future and the key to redemption is spirituality, yes. And in that spirituality, it can be, this is an example, can be distilled down to the balancing of the masculine and the feminine. Because so much of what we're trying to do in the Baha'i faith requires a balance of both. So yeah, I'm on this journey to undefine masculinity to help men. You know, there's aspects of the Baha'i faith all over the book, because that is the guiding principle of my life. And you know, it's the very thing that has gotten me here and why I'm alive, I think, and why anybody has any interest in talking to me, because that would be a hot mess and a disaster if it were not for faith.
Well, thank you so much. I know we're at time. I wanted to thank you so much, Justin, for joining us today. And this was a great way to start our Saturday. Thank you, everyone, for all your questions and everything. I just wanted to address, people are asking, like, how can they find out more about the Baha'i faith? The official Baha'i website is baha'i.org. And if you're watching from the US, it's baha'i.us. And there you can find all the official texts and the authoritative position of the Baha'i faith. And also, if you just want to watch more kind of casual talks like this, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll put the link again. And those are not authoritative positions, but they're just perspectives of individuals on different topics. So next week, we have this series every Saturday. So next week, our speaker will be Dr. Elena Mustakova, and her topic is Shift to a Global Consciousness from a Baha'i Perspective. So I'll put the link to all that in the chat. And we're going to close today with the Baha'i Prayer for Humanity.
O thou kind Lord, thou hast created all humanity from the same stock. Thou hast decreed that all shall belong to the same household. In thy holy presence, they're all thy servants, and all mankind sheltered beneath thy tabernacle. All have gathered together, all are illumined through the light of thy providence. O God, thou art kind to all, thou hast provided for all, dost shelter all, conferrest life upon all. Thou hast endowed each and all with talents and faculties, and all are submerged in the ocean of thy mercy. O thou kind Lord, unite all. Let the religions agree, and make the nations one, so that they may see each other as one family, and the whole earth as one home. May they all live together in perfect harmony. O God, raise aloft the banner of the oneness of mankind. O God, establish the most great peace. Cement thou, O God, the hearts together. O thou kind Father God, gladden our hearts through the fragrance of thy love, our eyes through the light of thy guidance. Delight our ears with the melody of thy word, and shelter us all in the stronghold of thy providence. Thou art the mighty and powerful, thou art the forgiving, who overlooketh the shortcomings of all mankind.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Bye, everybody.